I gave up my career, my savings, and my entire life to care for my sick sister. But then I found her wedding invitation, and she was marrying my husband. It sounds like something out of a cruel soap opera, right? But this was my life, and every word of it is true. My name is Alina, and for as long as I can remember, my world revolved around my younger sister, Clara. She was delicate from birth, born prematurely, always underweight, always one cold away from a hospital stay. Our parents were already older when they had her, and by the time Clara turned 15, they both passed away in a car accident. That day, everything changed. I was 23, freshly graduated with a degree in architecture, with a promising offer from a firm in New York. But as I stood over our parents' graves, holding Clara's hand, I knew my future wasn't mine anymore. I canceled the job offer, stayed in our small hometown, and began taking freelance design work to support us. Clara was everything I had left. And so, I became everything she needed: her guardian, her nurse, her emotional support, and in many ways, her second mother. For years, I barely slept. I worked nights so I could be there during her hospital appointments in the day. I sold my car to pay for her experimental treatments. I even let go of my dreams of owning my own firm because every dime I earned went to Clara's medications, special diets, or house help when her condition flared up. She had an autoimmune disorder, systemic lupus, they said. It attacked her joints, skin, kidneys, even her brain. Sometimes she'd have seizures. Other times she couldn't get out of bed for weeks. But she never complained. That's what made it all so worth it. Clara was always grateful, always smiling through the pain. She'd hug me and say, "I don't know what I'd do without you, Alina. You're my angel." I lived for those words. People asked me why I didn't go live my life, why I never dated seriously. But I couldn't explain it. This feeling of duty, of love. I wasn't a martyr. I was just someone who loved too hard, maybe too blindly. And then I met Ethan. He was a pharmacist at one of the clinics Clara visited. He was kind, soft-spoken, and unlike most men I'd known, he never made me feel guilty for putting my sister first. In fact, he admired it. We fell in love slowly, quietly, over shared coffees and whispered talks while Clara napped in waiting rooms. He proposed to me under the falling autumn leaves of our local park, kneeling beside Clara's wheelchair, including her in everything. She cried when I said yes. "I finally get to see you happy," she said. "You've given me everything. It's your turn now." It was the first time in years I let myself dream. We had a simple wedding. Clara was my maid of honor, even though she was too weak to stand. She wore lavender, her favorite color, and smiled through the entire ceremony, even when the pain crept into her eyes. That day, I thought I had it all: a sister who loved me, and a husband who understood my sacrifice. We moved into a small apartment nearby. Ethan kept his job. I continued freelancing from home. But even then, Clara remained a central part of my life. She'd call almost daily. Some nights, when she had attacks, I'd drive over in my pajamas, holding her hand until she fell asleep. Ethan never protested. Not once. He'd even go check on her himself sometimes, if I was working late. "Your sister's like family to me now," he used to say. I used to smile when he said that. I didn't know how little he meant it. There was a time, about a year into our marriage, when Clara's health began to stabilize, a new medication that worked wonders. She started walking again, going to the bookstore, even cooking. It was a miracle. And I thanked God for it every single day. With things improving, I finally started focusing on myself. Took on more clients. Saved for a future. Ethan and I even talked about kids. I was 32 now. Maybe it was finally time. But looking back, it was also the first time I wasn't fully available. The first time Clara didn't need me. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't like that. I brushed off the weirdness at first, the way she'd cancel plans with me but still post selfies from cafes. The way she suddenly stopped answering texts at night. I assumed she was finding her independence. I was proud, until one afternoon, a simple, rainy Tuesday, I came home early from a client meeting. Ethan wasn't home, but a cream envelope was on the counter. No name on it, just elegant calligraphy, sealed with gold wax. I opened it, and my entire world shattered in one breath. It was a wedding invitation. You are cordially invited to the union of Clara Whitmore and Ethan Vale. Date: September 12th. Location: Amalfi Coast, Italy. I felt the blood drain from my body. My fingers trembled. I read it again and again. There was no mistake. My sister, my husband, getting married, in secret, to each other. And the wedding was in 2 weeks. I stood there in the kitchen, my hands trembling around the invitation, as the rain tapped quietly on the window behind me, like a mocking applause for a tragedy I never saw coming. I read it again, thinking maybe, just maybe, it was a cruel prank. Or a mistake. Some other Ethan. Some other Clara. But the calligraphy was unmistakable. Her favorite gold foil. His full name. My sister. My husband. Together. My mind couldn't process it. How could this be real? We were married. Ethan and I had taken vows. Clara had stood right beside me, sick but smiling, as I said, I do. What kind of person plans a wedding to her own sister's husband? And what kind of man does this after watching you sacrifice everything for your family? I grabbed my phone. My fingers moved faster than my brain. I didn't think. I just dialed Clara. No answer. I called again. Voicemail. I texted. Clara, call me. Now. No response. I paced the room, heart racing, chest heaving, the kind of panic that seeps under your skin and wraps around your spine. I called Ethan. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. That's when I knew it wasn't a prank. It wasn't a mistake. It was real. They were hiding. I don't know how long I stood there, my body frozen in time, but when I looked up, the sky outside was dark. Hours had passed, and I still had no answers. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I tried to tell myself there had to be some explanation. Something I didn't know. Maybe she was just using his name for something. A joke. A lie. Anything but the truth. But deep down, I already knew. So on the third day, I did what I should have done long ago. I went to Clara's house. I drove in silence, my hands clutching the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me upright. Her street was quiet, lined with rose bushes and neat little mailboxes. I had driven down it 1,000 times, but this time it felt foreign, tainted. Her car was gone. So was his. I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked harder. Clara, I shouted. Open the door. Still nothing. Then, something caught my eye, the side window slightly ajar. I looked around. The street was empty. I climbed through. The house was different, cleaner, brighter. No signs of illness, no pill bottles on the table, no medical equipment. The house didn't look like the home of a sick woman anymore. It looked like someone who'd moved on. I walked down the hallway, calling her name. Nothing. Then I saw it, a large whiteboard in the hallway. A wedding planning board. Dress fitting done. Flights booked done. Florist meeting done. Final guest list. 23. Venue. Villa Fiorelli, Amalfi Coast. In the corner, scrawled in her neat cursive. Ethan's mom confirmed. And under it, in his handwriting, unmistakable block letters. Can't wait to start our real life. Our real life. I stumbled back. I nearly vomited. They'd been planning it for weeks. Maybe months. While I was working late to cover our bills, while I was helping Clara pick up groceries, while I was booking doctor's appointments, they were planning a wedding. I opened her laptop. It wasn't even password protected. They were careless. Inside were folders. Photos. Messages. Dozens of photos. Her in a white dress at fittings. Him kissing her cheek behind my back. Screenshots of their texts. laughing about how naive I was. She still thinks I'm helping you with the medication schedule. God, she's so obsessed with saving people, it's pathetic. Ethan, don't worry. After Italy, she'll be out of our lives forever. Clara, my ears rang. I couldn't breathe. Out of their lives forever. They didn't just betray me. They planned to erase me. After everything I had done. After sacrificing everything I had, my career, my money, my youth, my joy, they treated me like a placeholder. A temporary crutch. Someone to be used. And then discarded. I dropped the laptop and ran out of the house. That night, I didn't cry. Not one tear. I stared at my ceiling for hours, numb and shaking. Betrayal didn't even feel like a strong enough word. It was annihilation. A complete demolition of the two people I trusted most. I thought of all the nights I held Clara's hand during seizures. I remembered Ethan rubbing my shoulders after a long shift, the nights we laughed. The birthdays. The hospital bills. The hope. All of it was fake. And then the rage came. Not the loud, screaming kind. The quiet kind. The kind that grows slowly, like poison in your veins. The kind that whispers. Make them regret it. By morning, I had a plan. Not to cry. Not to beg. But to end this story on my terms. They wanted me out of their lives after Italy. Fine, but I'd be there first. Because now I knew the wedding date. The location. The guest list. And I had nothing left to lose. The day after I discovered the wedding plans, I went completely silent. No messages. No calls. No confrontations. They didn't know I knew. And that gave me power. I moved like a ghost through my apartment, barely eating, barely blinking, but my mind. My mind was alive like wildfire. Every second, every heartbeat was strategy. I didn't want to scream at them. That would have been easy. That would have let them win. Two guilty cowards watching the woman they betrayed fall apart. No. I wanted them to be exposed. Utterly and completely. Not just to me, but to everyone they were pretending in front of. So I started planning. First, I quietly made copies of the invitation, the texts, the photos, the messages. I stored everything on an encrypted flash drive and mailed a second copy to a friend in case anything happened to me. Then, I called a travel agent and booked the ticket to Naples, Italy. Same day as their wedding. First class. One way. The irony was delicious. I was using the joint savings account Ethan and I had built together, savings meant for our future, to fund the destruction of his. Next, I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My old college friend, Natalie. Natalie was everything I used to be: sharp, stylish, unapologetically ambitious. We had drifted apart after Clara's illness and my world became too heavy, but she never stopped checking in. She lived in Milan now, working as a luxury event planner. When I called her and told her some of what happened, not the whole thing, just enough, her voice was ice cold and ready. I've planned weddings for people far more disgusting, she said. Tell me everything. In 2 hours, we had a plan. She'd help me get into the venue. Quietly. No drama. No screaming banshee crashing the altar. This wasn't about embarrassment. It was about obliteration. I was going to stand in that villa, wearing elegance, silence, and secrets, and wait until the moment they felt the most untouchable. Then I'd shatter them. The day of the flight, Ethan still hadn't called. Neither had Clara. I think they believed I had no idea that I was back home, maybe heartbroken but clueless. That I'd just disappear, like they wanted. I wore a black dress on the plane. Not for mourning, for armor. Clean lines. No jewelry. Just precision. Natalie met me in Naples with a driver and a tailored gown she pulled from a Milan boutique, navy blue silk, off-shoulder, dramatic but dignified. The kind of dress that made people ask, "Who is she?" instead of "What is she doing here?" The wedding was at a private villa perched on the cliffs of the Amalfi Coast. Villa Fiorelli, a place I'd once bookmarked for my dream honeymoon with Ethan. Now I was walking into it alone, a storm behind my eyes. Guests were already arriving when we pulled up. I stayed in the car until I saw Natalie step out and talk to the security staff, clipboard in hand, confident as a queen. She handed them a fabricated guest list, and my name was on it. +1. Natalie waved to me, cool and calm. Game time. I stepped out. Heads turned. Not because they recognized me, but because they didn't. I was unplaceable, not the heartbroken wife in sweatpants they had imagined, but someone sharp, haunting, uninvited, and perfectly at home. The villa was glowing with white roses and gold accents. Guests sipped champagne. A string quartet played under the pergola. It was beautiful. Disgustingly beautiful. I floated through the crowd, unnoticed, until I spotted them. Clara. In a sleek white dress, not traditional, but designer. Her hair up, skin glowing, smiling as if the universe had always been hers. And Ethan. In a tailored tuxedo, laughing. His hand at the small of her back, that same stupid smirk I once fell for. I felt nothing. No heartbreak. No grief. Just precision. I kept to the shadows until the ceremony began. They walked down the aisle together. No father figure. No music swell. Just two betrayers in love with their lie. The officiant began speaking. Words like love, loyalty, and forever floated into the air like ash from a burning home. Then, the moment came. If anyone has reason why these two should not be joined in marriage. I stepped forward. Not loudly. Just a few steps. One foot onto the stone path that separated them from the crowd. People turned. Murmurs. Clara's eyes locked onto mine. Her smile vanished. Ethan paled. Hi, Clara, I said. Calm, measured, deadly. I'm so sorry I missed the bachelorette party. I was just a little confused, since I thought I was still married to the groom. Gasps. Aunties dropped champagne flutes. Someone coughed hard. One of Ethan's uncles stood up halfway and sat back down like his knees gave out. Clara opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Ethan stepped forward, face red. Alina, don't. This isn't. Oh, it is. I interrupted. It's exactly what it looks like. I pulled the flash drive from my clutch. Held it up. This contains every single message you two exchanged while you planned your little destination disaster. The affair. The lies. The fake hospital appointments. The stolen money. Even the parts where you joked about how pathetic I was. I smiled. Don't worry. I've sent copies to every guest on the invite list. Check your phones. A ripple spread through the crowd as dozens of phones buzzed. People gasped. Murmurs turned to outrage. Was this all true? Someone asked. Isn't she his wife? Another voice whispered. Clara stepped toward me, whispering like a warning. You're making a scene. I tilted my head. And you made a marriage out of betrayal. We all have our hobbies. Ethan grabbed her arm. We need to leave. Now. I laughed. No, you don't. Stay. Enjoy your party. You deserve it. I turned and walked out. Slowly. Without looking back. Because I didn't need to see the rest. I had already won. I walked out of that wedding like a shadow slipping back into the night. But what I left behind? That was a fire. By the time I reached the villa's exit, guests were already leaving in droves. Whispering, shouting, showing each other the screenshots I'd sent. Clara's aunt slapped Ethan across the face. One of her college friends burst into tears. A groomsman looked like he wanted to punch something or someone. But that was just the beginning. Exposing them publicly was only the first strike. A blow to their pride. Temporary. Loud. I wanted something that would last. That would echo. So I gave them the gift of ruin. Carefully wrapped. Patiently delivered. 3 days after the disaster wedding, I was back home. Clara and Ethan didn't return. They extended their stay in Italy, probably to hide. But they couldn't run from the fallout. Because while they were sipping espresso and pretending none of it happened, I was unspooling their lives thread by thread. Step 1 was legal. I filed for divorce. Fast, clean, and with all the documentation I had, there was no chance Ethan could contest anything. But I didn't just end the marriage. I gutted it. The apartment we shared? It was in my name. The joint savings account, majority mine. Every payment I'd made on his car, his insurance, even his business investment in a local pharmacy startup, I had receipts. Traced. Labeled. My lawyer, a woman named Lee who was colder than steel and smarter than any man in the room, smiled as she reviewed everything. You want to bleed him financially, she said. No, I corrected. I want to dissect him. Slowly. She nodded. Then we begin. We froze accounts. Froze credit lines. Issued legal letters to remove his name from property titles. Served him through his business partners, publicly. Within a week, his access to money was limited to the clothes on his back. And Clara? She hadn't worked in years. Her illness had kept her from building any independent income. Most of her medical bills had been in my name. The insurance? Tied to me. I didn't just pull the plug. I yanked the whole machine. I sent notice to every medical provider. Clara Whitmore was no longer under my care, no longer covered by my plan. When she returned, she'd find that her prescriptions were no longer valid and her name was flagged for unpaid bills. I had spent years being the safety net. Now I let them both fall. But I wasn't done. Step 2 was professional ruin. Ethan had a reputation in our small community, calm, professional, trustable. The kind of pharmacist elderly women sent cookies to. So I sent the truth to the clinic. No rage, no drama, just the facts. A full packet, delivered in a plain envelope. Screenshots of his messages joking about controlled prescriptions, the fake appointment logs he'd used to cover up meetings with Clara, even one photo, him half naked, in the clinic office, taken by Clara with the timestamp visible. HR called him in. I don't know what was said. But 2 days later, he was fired. Publicly. Without severance. His license would be under review. I heard he tried to spin it, but there's only so much gaslighting you can do when your dirty laundry's already circling the internet like wildfire. Step 3? Their relationship. They thought betrayal would bind them, that their shared secret made them special. But love built on lies crumbles fast. I didn't even have to do much. After the wedding fallout, Clara's friends abandoned her. Her image, once the brave, sick sister, was shattered. People stopped calling. Her own cousin unfollowed her. And Ethan, a man without a job, a home, or reputation, suddenly wasn't such a romantic catch anymore. Natalie told me she saw a photo of them weeks later, sitting at a cheap sidewalk cafe in Naples, looking tired, drained, dead-eyed. No rings. No smiles. She was wearing sunglasses, the kind you wear to hide the puffiness from crying. I didn't feel joy. I felt peace. But the real final blow? That came on my terms. 3 months after the wedding, I mailed Clara a letter. Not a scream. Not a threat. Just this. Dear Clara, I hope Italy was beautiful. I hope it gave you everything I once wanted for you, comfort, freedom, a future. Because now you'll need it. You spent your life taking from mine. You mistook sacrifice for stupidity, love for weakness. But you forgot something. I raised you. I know you. And I know how easily you break. So here's what I want you to remember every time you look at him. I didn't destroy your life. You handed me the match. I just lit it. I never heard back. Not directly. But months later, I found out Clara moved back to our hometown. Alone. Ethan had stayed behind in Europe, broken, jobless, bouncing from city to city trying to restart. Clara checked herself into a private clinic soon after. Stress-induced symptoms, they said. Possible relapse. No one visited. And me? I moved. Not just houses, lives. I took a job in Chicago with a design firm that had once rejected me when I chose family over ambition. This time, they took me in with open arms. Turns out, When you remove toxic roots, you make space for real growth. And slowly, beautifully, I bloomed. 6 months had passed since the wedding. 6 months since I stood at the edge of that cliffside villa and burned the illusion they'd built. 6 months since I became someone else, someone harder, sharper, but strangely lighter. I'd settled into my new life in Chicago. My apartment was small but sunlit, filled with clean lines and quiet corners. I'd joined a firm that respected me. No more late-night emergencies. No more canceled dates to handle Clara's medications. No more waiting for Ethan to come home late with made-up stories and cologne that didn't smell like mine. I was free. And for the first time in over a decade, I didn't feel guilty for choosing myself. But peace is a funny thing. It never arrives in silence. It arrives in cycles, interrupted, tested, broken, to see if you really earned it. And mine was about to be tested in the worst way. It started with an email from a name I didn't recognize. Subject: please read. It's about Clara. At first, I almost deleted it. I didn't need more drama. But something about the phrasing, something tight and desperate in the tone, made me click. The email was short. Hi Alina. You don't know me, but I'm Dr. Samir Darwish. I'm a clinical psychologist at the Lunsford Trauma Center in Maryland. I'm currently treating your sister, Clara Whitmore. She's been here for the past 6 weeks after a serious psychological episode. She's not doing well. She talks about you constantly, with guilt, confusion, and obsession. But she said something yesterday that made me question everything. She claimed she never planned the wedding. She said she never loved Ethan. She said she was forced. Please, I need to speak with you directly. There's more to this. It's urgent. Dr. Darwish. I stared at the screen, my mouth dry. Forced? What the hell was he talking about? Was this another manipulation? A last-ditch effort from Clara to rewrite the story now that everything had crumbled? Still, I couldn't ignore it. I responded. We scheduled a call. That night, I sat by my window in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, heart racing. Dr. Darwish had a calm voice. Measured. Precise. Not the voice of a man who indulged delusions. She's suffering from dissociative identity fragmentation, he said. Not full-blown did, but she's displaying signs of trauma-induced identity disruption. It's rare in adults, especially at this level. And what does that have to do with Ethan? I asked, cold. He hesitated. Then said, Clara told me. She doesn't remember the wedding. Silence. She remembers being sick. Then suddenly, waking up in Italy, wearing white, with a man she didn't love. She said she felt trapped. Like someone else had taken over her body for weeks. I felt a chill run through me. She also told me, he continued, that she was being drugged. My breath caught. No, I said immediately. No, that's not possible. She lied. She planned everything. I saw the messages. The photos. Photos Ethan had access to, he said quietly. A phone she left at his place. Messages that could have been staged. You said yourself he often visited her alone. That he administered medication. That he knew her routines. The room started spinning. No, I whispered. She wanted him. She took him. I'm not saying she's innocent, he said gently. But she's not the architect of all this. She was vulnerable. And someone manipulated that vulnerability. I stood up, pacing, my mouth dry. Then he asked the question that undid me. Did Clara ever sign the marriage license? I froze. The invitation. The ceremony. But no legal paperwork. And I remembered. She used to say she hated paperwork. Always made Ethan handle it. I dropped into a chair. Are you telling me Ethan did all of this? That he? I'm telling you that Clara wasn't the only one betrayed. The next week was a blur of research, phone calls, and documents. I contacted the Italian consulate. No marriage license on file. I checked Clara's prescription history, inconsistencies, sudden changes, meds she never responded well to suddenly refilled at odd times. Ethan's name showed up repeatedly as the authorized caregiver. It was starting to make sense. Not just betrayal, but manipulation, control, psychological abuse. Ethan hadn't just cheated. He'd used Clara's illness to separate us, to drug her, to isolate me, to break the only bond strong enough to threaten his power over me. Why? Because I'd started reclaiming my life, because I'd stopped revolving around them, because he couldn't handle not being the center anymore. And so he manufactured a betrayal, a wedding that never legally existed, a love story that was really a prison, a lie so big it made me walk away from both of them. And I did exactly what he wanted. I abandoned Clara. And now she was in a trauma ward, broken, confused, and barely holding on. And the worst part? She was still asking for me. I visited her. 6 weeks after the email, I walked into the Lunsford Trauma Center. She was sitting by a window, pale and frail, with dark circles under her eyes. When she looked up, her whole body trembled. "Alina," she whispered. "You came." I didn't know what to say, so I sat beside her. She started crying, not sobbing, just quiet, gutted tears. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "I didn't know what I was doing. I was sick, and he made me feel like you were the enemy." I didn't say anything. Not yet. She looked at me, eyes hollow. "I hated you," she whispered. "But I didn't know why. I just believed him. He said you wanted to control me, that you'd leave me if I didn't act first." And then she broke down, told me everything. The wedding planning had been a fog. She remembered flashes, a dress she didn't pick, a photo shoot she never agreed to, Ethan always hovering, always with a new pill to help her sleep, always whispering, "She doesn't want what's best for you." "I do." He had turned her against me, step by step, until she became the villain in a story he wrote. I walked out of that hospital shattered, because I had burned down my sister, but not the real one. Not the sick, scared girl I'd raised and protected. The one I loved more than life. I had destroyed the version of her that Ethan had created. And the real Clara? She was a victim too. Just like me. Ethan disappeared. By the time I filed new charges, attempted medical fraud, identity coercion, prescription abuse, he had already vanished from Italy. Left the country. Vanished from social media. Even his mother claimed not to know where he'd gone. Maybe he's hiding in South America, or some island where no one knows his name. But he's running. And that's enough for now. Clara stayed in recovery for months. We rebuilt slowly. I didn't forgive her instantly. Some days I still don't fully know what's real and what's not. But I know this. She didn't steal my husband. He stole both of us. And the woman I thought had betrayed me was actually the final victim of my revenge. Now, whenever someone asks me why I live so far from my family, why I never talk about my ex-husband, why I don't cry about the sister who ruined my wedding, I just smile and say, because sometimes the villain isn't who you think it is.